It's Aloha Monday, gonna swim, bike, and run day.
Chee!
Cause it's breakfast with Bob.
Woo!
And Poncho Man.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, back to the 12th edition. Breakfast with Bob from beautiful Huggo's on the Rocks. 12 years in a row.
edition.
Yeah, 12 years I think we've been doing this. Actually, it might be 14, something like that.
I love that number 12.
That's a good number, right?
I raced here 12 times.
You race here 12 times. And, by the way, we are brought to you by Master Spas. SFuels go longer. HOKA Let's Fly. deboer wetsuits. Form Smart Swim goggles. Zoot Sports. The original triathlon brand. Quintana Premium Sports. And, of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. He has won here 6 times. He has won the Nice Triathlon 10 times. He's inductee into the USA Triathlon Hall of Fame, the Ironman Hall of Fame, won the first ever ITU World Championship in Avignon, France. Mr. Mark Allen.
Wow.
How you doing, buddy?
Where is he?
You're looking around going,
I don't recognize him anymore.
That sounds like a lot of stuff,
He's got
man.
gray hair and wrinkles. You know what I'm saying?
You're going to have to continue your business card on the other side. There's a lot of stuff going on
I
there.
know. Wow. Like 12 years for Breakfast with Bob. I raced here 12 times. 6 were good. 6 were like, whoo, oh boy. Andrew Messick,
Yes.
CEO for 12 years, retiring this year.
Yes.
I think that's a magic number for the sport of triathlon.
It's really good. I think it's very special. Speaking of the number 1, first time here, you were there watching her win St. George 70.3 Worlds last year, right? You were there in Paris watching her qualify for her second Olympic Games.
I
in
know
which she
who
got
he's
5th.
talking about.
Yep. Then you just watched her win her second 70.3 World Championship in Lahti, Finland. Taylor Knibb is the wild card. Coming here, never run a marathon, never done an Ironman, but she qualified by winning 70.3 Worlds. She's here, and she's going to be a factor.
You know, it's super interesting because she has all of the tools of what it takes to be a champion here. Clearly, she's very she's diligent with her training. She knows her body. She looks at every little detail, not necessarily in an obsessive way, but just in a very pragmatic performance way.
Right.
She looks at everything. She takes care of her body in the race. Like, you know, she's one of the few athletes that will stop and put socks on because she goes, I know if I have blisters, I don't run as fast. I'll save that. I'll make that time up later. That kind of a thing. She's coming into this race super excited about it. She's got one of the best swims in the sport. I don't know if I want to say the best, but she's for sure going to be, I think, right there with Lucy. Her bike, in my opinion, is the best in the sport at this point in time. Probably the best ever cyclist to enter the sport of triathlon. And I have heard through the grapevine from her coach and others that even though she qualified for the Olympics and she's super fast, that she's actually kind of a diesel engine. And she can just go and go and go and go. And so, and here's the kicker part. She's fearless.
Totally fearless.
She's fearless. Like she was pitted against Daniela Reef in the
first Collins Cup.
In the first Collins Cup.
That's right.
And instead of being intimidated, she was like super excited.
Oh yeah.
She's like, I get to race Daniela Reef. She's the best ever. And she was bummed when Daniela didn't have a great race there. She goes, I don't know if I'll ever get to race her again. She's gotten a chance coming up here on Saturday.
That's a really, and then when she came there to that Collins Cup race, everybody was laughing, talking, oh, she doesn't have a time trial bike. She's riding a road bike. And she outsplit everybody on her road bike. She probably killed triathlon bike sales for that year when she basically got on a road bike and destroyed everybody.
Yeah, mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. So I think she could be the disruptor this year. You know, we have the names for the race that have won here before.
Yes.
There's 3 past champions.
Yep.
Anna Haug is here.
Yep.
Chelsea Sodaro, who won last year.
And Daniela Reef, who's won 5, going for number 6.
And you know, and I think each one of those has clearly they have what it could take to win if the conditions are right for sort of their strengths. Like so, you know, what I have seen in the past is that it seems like if the bike is pretty hard, that actually can favor the really good runners because everybody's just out there longer. It tires them out, and they have less to put into the marathon. Look at Lori Bowden. Look at Heather Fear. They both won a number of years ago on some of the worst windy days that we ever had. 2 great runners. So I'm looking at Annie Haug as like, okay, she's upped her bike game for sure.
Big time.
And so she doesn't even need to have it be a bad day, but she can run as fast, if not faster than anybody. Chelsea Sodaro last year, one of the reasons I look at her as one of the top 3 favorites, she and her coach had decided, okay, here's how fast we want you that you're going to target on the marathon. Here's the pace that we want you to target. This is what her coach and the two of them had decided. She got out there, she started running, she's like, I'm going faster than that. So she's not afraid to go beyond the numbers, and she is willing to kind of take that extra risk. And look at what happened last year. Just absolutely dominated that race. Was so amazing. Perfect form all the way through the marathon. Daniela Reef, 5-time champion, 4 times winning here. She's got to be thinking, 6 would be a pretty cool number. It would put me in a league with somebody who happens to be on the island.
Yeah, it was funny when we were in Challenge Roth. Who came over to watch Challenge Roth this year? Chrissy Wellington, who at that point her AA18 was the fastest time ever for a woman, and who goes 8:08 that day? Daniela Reef. Natasha's getting inducted in Ironman Hall of Fame, 6-time champion from Switzerland, happens to be here, and Daniela's going for number 6. Sometimes things just are meant to be.
Yeah, and if I think back on my career, when I got toward the end, you just have that feeling like, I'm not going to have many more opportunities. And so it really almost frees you up to just put that little bit of extra in, because you know that you're not saving anything for next year, next race, next 3 races, next 3 Ironmans or whatever it is. I don't know what her ultimate plan is, but if I was her, I would be thinking of any year to win. Not only would it be cool to win at this point in my career, but also because this race is just so historic, having the women-only racing Ironman World Championship in Kona right here in a few days.
So when I look at Daniela, and when she's had her, like last year, she goes to Oceanside, gets disqualified, and finished 10th. It's a 70.3, and people are like, she's done, right? She's not going to be a factor anymore. Then she had a solid month, went to Sedona, very similar terrain to St. George, and destroys people, right? And when she has that block of time, same with Challenge Roth, she had that block of time to get ready for Challenge Roth. Now, I was surprised she went to Lati, to be honest. I thought she would have just stayed home and focused on this, but I think she wanted to, maybe work on her speed a little bit. I don't think she was that bummed by how she did there, because this is the goal. And she knows next year the women are going to be in Nice, which I think is a good course for her as well.
Absolutely.
Really great course for her, because she rides in the mountains all the time. But to win here, and like you're right, she might be here. This might be her last time here.
She's had some up and down moments throughout her career.
Yes.
And her down moments are when she's off. She's off. It's not like she goes from first to second. She goes
the 13th.
Yeah, she goes down the list. And when she crossed the line in Finland, she tried to put on kind of a resolute face, I guess you'd say, and then she saw some of her team, and she just goes.
Yeah, she was not very happy.
She was not happy, and I'm sure she's kind of used that sort of frustration to fuel the fires getting ready for this. And perhaps she's one of those kind of athletes that kind of does better when people sort of write her off and say, oh, like she said, her
godson.
Her godson who's like, oh, she used to win.
She used to be good at triathlon.
Yeah, she used to be good at triathlon. Well, I have news for you. She's still good at triathlon.
So we've seen Jan Frodeno just retired. Sebastian Kienle just retired. As somebody who's been there, you come out you came out on top. You had the type of finish to a career that everybody dreams about. Last time doing Ironman, you're 14 minutes down, you come back, you win, drop the mic, I'm done. Most people figure, oh, he's not really done, he'll come back. You've never come back. One, was that difficult? And two, for someone like Jan, who didn't have the race he wanted, went to Nice and wanted to have that great race, was probably very emotional all week. I was talking to his agent, Felix, and he was talking about reading emails. He'd get teary. A lot of emotion went into that, where I think when you came here for that last one, you had already resigned yourself. This is my last one. When I'm 10 miles into that run, I'm done, right? I know I only have 16 more miles. I'll never run again.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly easier to make that decision before the race start and stick with it after winning than it would have been had I got anything other than first. But I knew that if I got second, third, fourth, any number other than one, I still had to have that be my last Ironman, because I just knew, you get pretty, I think, good at kind of tuning into your body over the years as a top pro, and if you don't, you get injured all the time, and I had a pretty good string of not getting injured.
Right.
So, and I wanted to exit the sport uninjured, not burned out, healthy, because I knew that, okay, I'm in my late 30s, hopefully I'll have another 20, 30, 40 years of lifestyle exercise.
Exactly.
And I had seen a number of top cyclists, runners, triathletes, who endurance athletes training in Boulder, Colorado, who went too many years, and they go down that slippery slope on the other side, like, oh, one more race, and emotionally they get frustrated because they don't ever get it, but more importantly, a lot of times they would sort of break the engine, and then they were stuck with sort of health issues that lingered for years and years and years. And so anyway, Jan clearly would have been much easier to say, last dance, I'm done, had he crossed that line in first place. Much harder emotionally to put it into a kind of perspective box that says, okay, you know what, I called it, I did it, that's just how it turned out, and let's not dwell on that and say that was my career, because everything that led up to that moment was what made that decision so great. You know, winning a gold medal, winning 70.3 worlds, winning Ironman, setting world best times at iron distance, setting a record here on the course here in Kona.
Right.
His last time out.
Yep.
There is no shame in that, and nobody will remember him for his final race in Nice. He will be remembered for the amazing athlete that he was for 3 decades. 3 decades.
Yeah. So when I look at the athletes now from the male side, you have Sam Laidlaw and Magnus Dietlef, and it used to be guys would come in like Jan Frodeno. Jan Frodeno goes through the Olympic format. He wins his gold. Then 2012 comes back again, and then moves on, like 31 years old or so when he moves on to this longer distance. That was sort of the way it was done. But now these guys are going, I don't really want to do Olympic format. I want to go long. And they're going fast and long right away, right?
Yeah. Actually, when Laidlaw won, that brought up a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
People are like, wow, he's too young to just like jump into Ironman. He's only 24, and you need to progress through the sport. And I heard some ex-athletes saying, yeah, I had a 20-year career because I started short and I went long. And I stood back for a second and I go, let's actually look at this, because I think it's a really interesting question to pose. Is it unhealthy for a young person to do an Ironman? In your early 20s, is that unhealthy or not? Is it healthier to do Olympic distance racing first and then move on? And I looked at my career. First time I did Ironman, I was 24.
Exactly. Yep.
I did short and long at the same time. I exited the sport, never missing a race because of an injury. You can look at guys who built their way up through the distances, who completely failed at it. You can look at like Alistair Brownlee. 2 gold medals, moves up, through 70.3 Ironman, but he's been injured over and over and over and over. So obviously not quite so healthy. Javier Gomez, same thing. Came up through the ranks, short when he was young, came up, did 70.3, did Ironman, had a big stretch where he couldn't race because of heart issues. He's back racing, but again, that clearly does not necessarily mean that you're going to be healthy to just progress up through that. Look at the young people, or the people who only did short racing, who did it. They break down. They're injured. Look at Georgia Taylor Brown, or our gold medalist from
Gwen?
No. From Bermuda. Come on.
Oh, Flora Duffy. Okay.
Flora Duffy. Those two have not gone into long distance racing. Neither of them have basically raced this year at all. So just because you're going short when you're young and building up long later doesn't
mean you're automatically going to be healthy throughout the process.
And if you start at long distance when you're young, doesn't mean that that's going to ruin you either.
Right.
So then I pulled the lens back even further, and I said, okay, so what's the real deal here? The real deal has to do with recovery. It doesn't matter whether you're going short, long, medium distance, building up, starting long, never going short, starting short, going long. If you don't build in enough recovery into your training, into your racing, it will come back to bite you. And so that ultimately is what will determine whether your progression within the sport is healthy or not.
One of the things that I saw back in the day is you had folks getting into, like Pete Jacobs, right? Pete Jacobs started with the long distance, and I think he did 31 Ironman by the time he was 30 years old, something like that. It's a lot of Ironman.
Yeah.
And I think there's a point of diminishing return where you can burn yourself out. In marathon, Ryan Hall, he did 10 marathons between 2007 and 2011. All of them were 2:04:58 to 2012. So we're talking high quality. Didn't do a lot of but that's a lot of marathons at a high level, and then career's over, right? Move on.
Yeah.
So you're seeing both, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Someone can come in and be dominant for Chrissy Wellington from the same type of thing, 2007, 2011, undefeated, 13-0, and hangs it up because she's had all these high quality races. Every athlete's gonna be a little different in terms of how they address their career.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how long do you want to race?
Right.
How often do you want to race? How often do you want to be at the top of the podium? And be realistic about all of those things, and then build in your recovery to match your goals. And that's kind of what I did. Like my last big race of the year obviously was Kona every year in October. And so I would ramp things way down. I would decondition November, December. It's not like I sat in a chair all the time. I was active, but I didn't do anything in training that was targeting gaining fitness. It was purely just the joy of moving, surfing, yeah, doing a little bit of running, walking on trails, whatever. So I had a long off season. A lot of people, especially now, they take 2 weeks easy, and they're like, okay, it's time to get back at it. It's like
Ironman Florida. Yeah.
Oh, geez, are you kidding me? And then secondly, you have to look at the number of miles you race every year, and the intensity that you race those miles at.
Yes.
So if you're going Olympic distance, clearly super high intensity, that's going to take a toll if you don't spread that out over the year. Same with Ironmans. If you do too many, obviously, in 1 year and you peak at them, you're going to pay a price down the road. So it's all about that balance of have your dream, go for it, stretch, go for the limit, but be a professional at recovering as well.
The one story that always intrigues me is back in the day, Chris McCormick, early in the season, would win Ironman Australia, and then he would go and do he'd do Roth or Frankfurt,
yeah.
And then he'd come to Kona and blow to the moon, right? His track record was dropping out, walking, all that type of stuff. And then I think you had some conversations with him and basically said, hey, early season, if you're training to do Ironman Australia, which is in April, whenever the heck that is, you're training in the winter, right? In our winter. And then if you're training again for Roth or Frankfurt, the reality is you can't peak 3 times in a year. That's simplifying your message, but it's something like that.
Yeah, he was frustrated because he could win everywhere but here.
Yeah.
I know that. I know that feeling.
Could you identify?
Yeah, I could relate. But his reasons for not winning were different than mine. Like you said, he would go into those early season Ironmans in the same type of shape that I had to work all year to get at by October.
Right.
And so I said, go ahead and do them, but first of all, go into them heavy and go into them slightly undertrained so that you're still on the rise. You don't want to hit the top in the middle of the summer and then try and do it again in October. It's too difficult at an Ironman distance. Build throughout it. And so finally he surrendered and he did that and he came and he won.
Yeah.
And he put big old sponges in his thing and
ruined his photo.
Yeah, he said he had to come back and win that second one so that, he had a better photo.
A better photo. But that was the deal. So when he went to Roth with 10 extra pounds, he still won the race.
Exactly.
Even though he was not in shape.
Yeah.
And what was the conversation with him after he won, even though he was out of shape?
Well, after he won Kona, that's when the conversation was like, all right.
I get it now. I get it. And that changed everything for him.
Yeah.
And the other guys, Tim DeBoom, there's been a number of folks that Peter Reed, right? A lot of times you're dealing with athletes who Tim O'Donnell, working with Tim. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's mental. How do you address those athletes and getting them to have that peak performance?
Usually a top pro, there's only one or two small things that they need to change to get that last notch that will take them from third to first or second to first. But whatever those one or two things are that they need to change are usually the hardest things for them to do. If they were easy, they would have already done it.
Right.
And so, I had conversations with a number of people, Peter Reed, Tim DeBoom, Chris McCormick, to get them to just change a couple key things. And, when they finally go, okay, that's when it clicked. And I don't have the magic answer for everybody.
Right.
But, and I was just thinking something about the age thing. So I look back at, everybody said that Sam Laidlaw was the youngest champion of the Ironman World Championship. Perhaps for the men, but then I looked at the women's. Paula Newby-Fraser was also 24 when she won her first world championship.
How old was Kathleen McCartney? She might have been younger.
You're giving away the secret. So Paula was 24 and 5 months or something like that. Sam was 24 and 7 or 9 months.
Yeah.
So she was younger than Sam. But then I started going back even further in the history. Kathleen McCartney, when she won in 1982, was 20 years old. The next year, Sylviane Puntos won, and she was 20 years old.
Well, and how about Julie Leach? She must have been pretty young.
She was a little bit older. She was a little bit older.
So Kathleen was 20.
We had two women who were 20 years old who won this race.
So it's okay to go. And of course, option-wise, there weren't a ton of options doing racing.
And they couldn't even go have a Mai Tai afterwards.
Grip, as always, thank you for taking so much time, man. I love it. Poncho Man, take us out.
It's a little Monday, gonna swim, bike, and run day. Cause it's breakfast with Bob.
Yeah.
Thank you, Poncho Man.